It wasn't Zinsco's fault though, huh?
No, it was World War II.
You know, if World War II didn't happen, Zinsco would probably be the biggest panel producer right now.
Share the story on World War II though, man. I love hearing
World War
it.
II.
I
So
don't know the whole story.
when World War II happened, there was a metal shortage, and during that metal shortage, houses and everything was still getting built. People still needed to get panels and stuff. We didn't have enough metal to build these panels, the components and all that. So the NEC code had to change. During that time, there was only 2 metals that was allowed. And so they allowed a third metal to be added to producing Zinsco panels, bus bars, all sorts of stuff. So aluminum actually expands and contracts a lot more than the other 2 metals. Eventually, the National Fire Protection Agency came out with a report as far as electrical fire, and it was all pointing the finger at the Zinsco panel. So UL Listing did their tests on their breakers, bus bar, all that stuff. Again, they're like, oops, Zinsco or Sylvania was just getting lawsuits and this and that because their breakers do not trip under abnormal load. So you're looking at like a 20 amp breaker that would trip around the 30 to 40 amp.
We've seen loads when we put our amp probe on a Zinsco breaker where it's drawing 28 amps and it's on a 15 or 20 amp breaker.
Before trying to figure out what breaker was on that circuit, we used to do this back in there where we get the hot and we just touch it to the ground, right? And it was and like, yep, it's that breaker right there.
Yeah.
But when we did that on Zinsco, you can literally sit there and just arc.
Yeah.
And the breaker would not trip.
You can almost weld.
I remember doing it at this one house and we're just sitting there and he's like, hey, are you touching? I'm like, yeah. It was like splattering everywhere. It was literally melting the wire. Very unsafe, very unsafe.
We don't recommend that. We don't recommend that.
No, we don't recommend that. But the breaker wouldn't trip. It was a 20 amp circuit.
I remember back in the day when I was taught, my mentor actually taught me when I first started, he would literally use his fingers to test to see if they were hot.
Oh yeah, I remember doing that.
And I decided, I think I'll use a tester. Thank you. I'm not going to use that method.
I was at a customer's house and their breaker was tripping and they were having issues with all these plugs here. So they turned on everything I did. And I grabbed that thermal imaging out and I started scanning all the plugs.
Yeah.
And I can see which plug was overheating and shorting out. Or not shorting out, but overheating and drawing a lot. And I was like, it's that plug right there. And when I pulled it out, it was backstab. It was actually arcing on the neutral up.
When you bring that up to customers, you're going to perform a thermal imaging test on the panel or maybe looking at some receptacles, backstabs. What kind of reaction do you get when like, what is that? What are you doing?
I'll actually give you an example. There was this customer where his dryer was tripping the 100 amp breaker, even though it was the 30. Yeah. So he had a 100 amp breaker right here and the 30 was sitting next to it. I was like, all right, why don't you go start your dryer and then come out here. I'm gonna do a thermal imaging and we're gonna see what's happening right here. So he started dryer and I put my thermal imaging on it.
Yeah.
And I can see the temperature of the 30 amp getting higher, and this is surface temperature.
What's the temperature of the 100 amp main?
The 100 amp main was sitting next to it. So it was absorbing a lot of the heat. So surface wise, that 30 amp got to 300 degrees, over 300 degrees. Wow. The components inside underneath it is probably 350, 400, which is heating up that bus bar. That bus bar goes over to the main breaker and was heating up the main breaker. And then all of a sudden his main breaker went pop.
Yeah, I've seen that. It's always a little confusing. Like, well, why is my dryer overloading causing my main breaker to go? And there's a couple of reasons. I mean, if you have a poor connection on line 1 and line 2 of that main breaker, and that dryer is causing a lot of heat to that connection, that'll cause the main breaker to blow as well. Because that connection, again, poor connections cause heat.
He didn't want to go with the panel rejuvenation, which is understandable. I give him that option. Like, look, you're changing one, you might as well do all of them. They're within that lifestyle. I think his breakers are around the 15, 16 years old.
On the cuff.
So he had one breaker, but I did recommend him to do all of them, but he didn't. He didn't want to do all of them. So I'm like, okay.
I like your analogy on the recommendation of replacing. If you replace one, to replace them all. It's like replacing the spark plugs in your car.
I did. I told him that, but
they can make a decision what that's important and take the risks that they want to take.
Yeah.
But as long as we've done our job and given them the right, feedback and information, and they're educated, they're better off than they were before we got there.
There was another customer downtown too that we eventually did their panel change. It was a 200 amp overhead. So I was there last year, and I did a panel inspection. And we did some electrical work inside. We did lights, all sorts of other things inside, right? I did do the panel inspection, and I was like, hey, highly recommended to get your panel changed out. You do have an older panel, this and that, and failure is going to happen. You're already getting voltage fluctuation on your main breaker already. So they decided to just ignore it. A couple months ago, they actually called us, and half of their house was out.
Yeah, that happens a lot. We educate them on what the problems are. We make recommendations to get it done right now. And re-devices are a prime example. When we have backstab receptacles like we discussed earlier, we'll give them the recommendation. We'll fix the one. Within 6 months, others are going out.
It was crazy because when I got there, the wife and the husband was like, well, Benny, I guess you could just say, I told you so, right?
Oh,
And I did. And I was like, look, I don't like to say that, but I did warn you guys on this. So half their house is out. It was on a Friday. They're going through the weekend. And we had to do an emergency change out. I think we scheduled it for Monday. So what I did was like, hey, you only have one leg that's worked as you go, or L2 that's working right now. Okay, L1's down. I'll move a couple of the breakers around to get your furnace going. They had a gas furnace. You can't use anything that's 240. Yeah. And luckily it was during the winter time. They didn't need to use their AC. And I told them too, hey, but be very, very
conservative.
Yeah, and not use a lot of electricity. Don't turn on every light and go crazy, you know, but just use the bare minimum until we can get to you on Monday, okay? So I spent a little bit of time. I think about 45 minutes, an extra 45 minutes to an hour there. I moved their breakers around, took out all the 240s and everything, and just turned everything on. And like, okay, you got that man cave outside. I'll leave that sucker shut off. Just leave the main house on. You know, they have 2 kids.
I'm sure they appreciated that.
They did. It was cold. It was cold. It was a cold week too. And at the end, I wanted to make sure their furnace was working too. I was like, okay, turn on your heat, make sure it works. What's funny was he's like, yeah, it's weird because our dryer still works, because he turns on the dryer. I'm like, well, the only reason why your dryer's working because that one leg controls the motor spin. If you notice, you turn it on, you're not getting any heat. The heat is produced by either both legs or the other leg itself on the 240. The guy is an engineer too. So anyways, at the end, it was all done. Everything was a house downtown. And I even told him, like, hey, my recommendation now is to get your whole house re-devised, because you have 2-prong plugs. You have plugs that are non-tamper-proof. You have a new baby. You have the child, right now. And I pulled out their little, was it the little child-proof thing? And I kind of explained the story on that too. And they were very intrigued on that.
You have a story on the old tamper-proof little pieces that you plugged in? What's the story on that?
Okay. So anyway, one day I was watching TV, and this is back when you were doing YouTube and all that stuff. You actually had to turn to a TV channel, and I was watching the History Channel. I was watching Marvel. You know how like they're like, this came out, the building the dam and So they had like little tidbits in between, right? It was on building the dam and producing electricity and stuff. So they had little tidbits before going into commercial or, you know, this and that. They said that back in the days when electricity first came out, there was a snake oil salesman. He needed to make money and he couldn't figure out how to do it. But he found out when he saw wires going to people's houses, because back then they didn't bury it. So he was able to figure out, you know, like that house has electricity, that house has it. So he would show up there and he's like, hey, I noticed you just had electricity ran to your house. How many plugs do you have around your house? And they're like, 10, 15 or whatever. And he's like, I have this thing here that is gonna protect you. And he says, electricity is just like water. If you don't plug it up with this little thing that saves baby, you don't plug it up, electricity is gonna leak out and you're gonna step on it and you're gonna get shocked. You don't want your kids to get shocked or your dogs, right? And you definitely don't want to clean up electricity. Do you know how to clean up electricity? He sold that to everybody. And then later on, he found out that it was a good thing to protect kids, because kids were shoving their screwdrivers
toys and stuff.
It was a scam at the beginning. It was a scam, and it ended up being to where it's now, I don't know, what companies.
It came out because a child got hurt, so someone developed it. But it was already out there for a different reason, the snake oil salesman reason.
And so, a lot of people don't have tamper-proof plugs, and they actually don't understand how tamper-proof plugs work. They understand that, both of it has to be inserted for it to slide over or flip.
When they came out, it was a nightmare trying to train people how to use them, because they were really tough to get your plugs, your devices plugged into the receptacle, because you had to get them at the right spot. You had to make sure you're pushing on it that, evenly. Otherwise, you couldn't get anything in there. So not only did they keep the kids safe, they kept you from plugging things in, so they all probably saved electricity.
Yeah, they save electricity. They didn't have to leak it out.
Kids can't use it.